And we're live.
We're live with Valdamar Archuleta again, the third time, I believe, right before the election.
Yeah.
It's the third time.
And we were going to do this in a hot tub, but had some technical difficulties. So Valdamar did bring margaritas.
We got
So
margaritas.
cheers. Yeah.
Fancy.
Yeah. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday.
I am very happy that it's Saturday.
So, Valdamar, we have to figure that. Let me put this in here. Sorry, a little technical difficulties.
Good one.
There we go.
So, Valdamar, do you want to start us off by giving us an update on the race? Sort of what has the last month looked like for you? And how do you feel? I mean, I know it's a long shot for a Republican to win, but do you feel the momentum and the energy changing in Denver at all?
I feel good. The last month has been really busy. I'm very ready for this to be over, but it's been really good. I'm going around Denver having conversations with people and talking to the public, different groups, organizations, and that I've learned a lot about our city. And I grew up here, so like Denver is my home. I say that all the time, but it really is. But I've learned a lot. Like I know a lot more about this city now than I did before. And so that's been good. It's been a good experience, regardless of whatever happens next Tuesday. But I do think that people in Denver are ready for a different side of the conversation. I think this happens whether you're somewhere that's a really super blue area or somewhere that's a really super red area, you tend to be ignored by the other part. Or the whole, I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to do with party politics, just the other side of viewing things, or another way of viewing things. You kind of get set in a little bubble of, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and it's good to hear alternative views, and I think that people in Denver are ready for that. I'm not saying that we're going to flip Denver red, but, I think people want to hear a different side of the conversation, because I'll go to meetings and like different, they call them like town halls or whatever city council puts on and that, and everything's one-sided. All the solutions are one-sided. And so I think people appreciate it when I'm like, I raise my hand.
Yeah.
And I say something different. Some people might not like it, but I think the majority of the people are like, good, finally it's like a different idea.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I've noticed a momentum shift. People, especially after the last couple of years, people want change. Mm-hmm. They think that the way Denver has been run has been terrible. Some people are furious. Some people are just, ready for a change. But I feel like if it doesn't happen this time, it still will have done a lot for the movement. And I think, maybe next time around or the time after that, we might see a flip. Hopefully, I would say.
In Denver, I mean, even like I said, even if the county doesn't like flip red, if you can convince maybe 10% more of the population to consider a different perspective or a different way of handling issues, when we have statewide elections, that 10% of, there's like almost 500,000 voters in Denver. That's like 50,000 people. That 50,000 people could change a statewide election. And so I think a lot of people in Denver, and again, I don't want to make this like Democrat, Republican, because there's a lot, I've talked to a lot of like libertarians, moderates, or unaffiliated, who just like, they want to look at another way of handling things. And I think that to label it conservative solutions, they want to look at that, and they agree with a lot of that. Because when I talk to people around the city, I think that they agree with me most of the time. As long as I don't bring up the R word. They're good with what I'm saying, and they like the solutions and the ideas. So we'll see where things go.
Would you consider yourself, I don't know how this is labeled, but like a new age Republican? Because I know you have some beliefs that aren't aligned with the party, but I think they're more aligned with the public. Do you see classic normal conservatives aligning with you, or are you attracting a different, like you said, libertarians?
Labels are hard. I did a video back when I first started this campaign. It's on YouTube where I talk about, am I a liberal or am I a conservative? And basically the answer to that video, I gave no answer. Like, I don't know. I don't like either one of these boxes and I think this is true with most people. Like, they're conservative in some ways, they're liberal in other ways. I also think the word liberal is being misused nowadays, that what we now call liberals are more what you'd probably call politically leftists.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, someone who's liberal, they want freedom, they want liberty. They're more libertarian in their mindset and philosophy of the world, and that's not who, at least today, who we typically call liberals, who they are. I would look at myself as a classic liberal, if I must label myself something, kind of what liberals were like 15, 20 years ago. Not what they are today, but just, I want to live my life. I want to be left alone by the government and allowed to, thrive on my own, which I guess is kind of a more libertarian mindset. When it comes to politics, I do lean to the right. I viewed myself as a centrist for a long time, and then I don't know if anyone's really truly a centrist. Usually you lean one way or the other a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know yin yang, the whole the white and the black to spiral each other.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a little off topic here, but I was a massage therapy instructor for a long time, and I'm not really a religious person anymore. I grew up super religious. Now I'm really not. But we had a section in the class on Eastern theory, and we talk a lot about like Taoist theory. I really like Taoist theories, and I think that Taoism is more philosophical than religious, at least in my perspective of it. But I really like that yin yang theory. I think is it's very true.
The duality.
Yeah, there's always a duality of everything. And nothing's right in the middle, nothing's at either extreme, and everything's always changing. And I think in politics, that's typically how people are. No one's completely in the middle. No one's like extremely at the far, far ends. We're all kind of in here floating around. And your philosophy in your life's always changing. Nothing's stagnant. You're like not here always. A lot of it's also the political world. I think the political world has shifted. So a lot of people who were maybe even center left, but very close to that center, when that shift happened, now they're on the right. Now they're like center right or just right. And they're over here somewhere floating around. And I think that's what happened to me. I feel like I haven't really changed that much.
And, that's interesting you bring up, because I've definitely noticed a massive political realignment. You see Democrats going over to support the Republicans and vice versa. And I feel like the legacy media has missed that. Like, if you've just been watching legacy media, you haven't really been able to see a shift, but there is a huge shift happening. So it's cool that you reflect that shift. I mean, people are fed up with both parties, so it makes sense.
Yeah, that shift is happening. And I think, we got the good end of the deal here. People talk about, this Cheney and what's his name? Kinzinger, whatever Kinzinger's.
Henry.
Over on the Democrat side now. Like, well, we got Tulsi Gabbard, so I think we got the good end of the deal there. Although she made a full-on switch, they have not. They still are pretending that they're Republicans. It's fine, whatever. I think when it comes to party really is just like, parties are political tools that you use to accomplish something. I tell people, me becoming a Republican and working with the Republican Party is because I feel like this group of people and their platform and their voice, whatever, is a tool I can use to be a part of to make change. I don't have to agree with everyone over there. I don't have to agree with the entire platform. Although I will say the 2024 platform is much better than the old platform. Mm-hmm. So I agree with them a lot more now. I don't think it's perfect, but it never will be unless I write it myself. And even then, I'd probably look at it a month later and be like, oh, I shouldn't have wrote that. I now kind of don't agree with that. It's good. And I've had really, I feel like not as much pushback as I thought I in this campaign, I've gone to many parks and I put up my little table. I've just sat there in the park. And it has a little sign on the front that says, send Valdamar to Congress, change my mind. Something like that.
Cool. We should record one of those.
A group it's Young and Active Conservatives in Denver. I went to one of their social events, and a young man there told me to do that. He's like, you need to get one of those signs.
It's a good idea.
So I got a sign, and I've said, and a lot of people, they don't know who I am. So they come talk to me. They don't know that I'm a Democrat or a Republican. We did that one day in something Commons Park downtown, very close to here, with Johnny Johnson, who's running for House District 5 as a Republican. And he's a black man. I'm a Latino man. So we're standing there at this table. I think most people just assumed, oh, these are two Democrats.
Yeah.
They came and talked to us. And then they find out we're not. But no one had a problem with that. And throughout this whole time, even when I'm by myself, they find out I'm a Republican. They're like, oh, okay. And we just keep talking. It's not that big a deal to the general public.
Yeah. And sorry.
Yeah, you can go.
I was just going to say, especially when you're in person, online is so toxic. But in general, have you gotten a pushback from, the community at all? Because what I've noticed is, like you said, you don't like definitions, but a lot of people are so black and white.
Yeah.
And they hate Republicans. It's insane.
There is some of that.
Let's go.
So we were down in Pueblo. I'm leaving Denver here for a second, and I was down in Pueblo because I'm still the president of the Log Cabin Republicans, who are the LGBT side of the Republican Party. We were down in Pueblo. The Republican Party of Pueblo is amazing. I love them, and they've been doing a lot of change down there, and they've been winning Republican seats in that. Part of it is because, they're not really what you would I don't know, the way they're running things isn't your typical Republican Party. They're very connected to their community. They're out at different events. They're the ones who got a table at Pueblo Pride. And then they contacted me and said, we have a table. Do you want to come down? So I went down. And while we're there, I'm sitting next to Michelle, who's the chair of the Pueblo Republicans. A lady and I don't know who she is, it's local politics down there, but some lady who's running for something, as a Democrat walks by, or not her, but one of her team members. She has the shirt on and a sign she's carrying. And I guess the lady had just had a baby, but somehow there were some technical problems and she had to go to the hospital. And so I'm like, Michelle, I called her over, how's the baby doing? And they had a conversation like just two normal people, politics aside. And I thought that was great. And seeing the way they just interact with people, they're people, they're neighbors. We all live in this city together. But anyway, getting to the negative side of this story, we were there at Pueblo Pride, and the table next to us, which was a nonprofit that helped homeless people or something like that. They saw that they were next to us and they were not happy.
Really?
They got a bunch of cardboard boxes and tore them up and started writing signs. One said F Trump. The other said there's no such thing as a gay Republican. We're next to bigots with an arrow pointing to us. And then they had a whole story about J.D. Vance and how terrible he is. And they had it up and we're like, whatever. So we were there, and then they were telling everyone, talking about us negatively to everyone who came to their booth. And then there was some kid there. So I felt bad for the kid because he was 12. It
Yeah.
seemed like this probably wasn't his idea. They told him to do it. But when people would come talk to us, they would send him over with a whistle, like just stand there and blow his whistle.
Oh my
really?
God.
Jeez.
And so eventually we talked to the, and again, like I didn't really care, but we're like, should we tell the organizers of this event or should we just ignore? And eventually we're like, well, we probably should tell them. We told them.
Yeah.
They came over and they basically told us, well, that's their booth. They can do whatever they want. That part was surprising to me. Like I could see them doing that.
Yeah.
But when the organizers of the event were like, yeah, they can say that. They can do whatever they want. Because if it were reversed, we would have been kicked out.
Oh yeah.
As we probably should have been. But I do think that brought people to us because people saw that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was a booth across from us where a little girl came over later in the day. I mean, I call her a little girl. She's like 14, 15, so a teenage girl. And she handed one of the ladies who's there at the booth a note and just walked away. And I was like, oh no, like what did she just get? What's happening now? And it was like, I'm really sorry that they are treating you this way. You should be here and you're welcome, whatever. We were all getting like teary eyed. Like, this is,
Yeah.
I think it ended up being good for us because it made us look better than look bad.
Yeah, that's the environment now. Like the environment the political environment is so toxic that I don't really see, at least for the foreseeable future, how we move past just the hate because it's so. But hopefully there'll be a swing. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was curious what's next after this. Well, like, will you if you don't beat Diane, will you be running for office again?
Yeah, that's a question I've been getting a lot recently. Like, what are you doing next? There was someone on Twitter had posted on one of my posts, I can't wait till November 5th comes so this guy shuts up and goes away.
Oh, God.
And I usually just ignore posts like that, but I responded back, like, if you think I'm going away after November 5th, you're kind of mistaken, sir. This is just the beginning. I understood when I got into this, I knew, and this was kind of a long time in planning too, because it was probably back in 22 when the then state party had asked me to run, and I said no. But I started thinking about it at that point. What would I do?
Oh, so they actually asked you to run.
They did. And this was back in 22. So it was a different state party than the one we have now. But they asked. And I said no. But I started thinking about it. And in thinking about it, I knew what the outcome would most likely be. But what good can come from this? What can happen? And so I do think that a lot's been built in this campaign, in having connections with the community. And I've told people, like, next year, all these events I've done, like going to the powwow, going to Cinco de Mayo, being in the St. Patrick's Day parade, going to Juneteenth, and all these things, like, someone needs to do that. I won't have a campaign because there's no campaigning for anything next year, but someone needs to be there. Like, the party needs to be there, or someone representing, the alternate side of the conversation needs to be there. And so right now, to answer your question, I'm kind of giving you a lot of backstory to my answer, but I want to do something to that effect that will continue this forward. I don't know exactly what that is right now. There are some things I have in mind, but I just want to get through next week right now. And then I'll start looking at how do we do this? How do we go forward from here in creating or continuing this momentum?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how big the swing will be. We'll find out on Tuesday. I've heard numbers from people, but I don't know if I trust them on what they've said.
Yeah. Do you think Jenna Griswold should be thrown in jail for leaking
I
those
don't know.
passwords?
I think it needs to be
That's
investigated.
crazy.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, I don't know all the details.
Yeah, it's still coming out. I mean,
I've heard it on different radio shows, people talking about it, and what she did was bad. Well, and I don't necessarily even know if it was her.
Mhm.
However it happened, the fact that those passwords were on the website, I don't know. And as of right now, like I would guess that it wasn't done intentionally. Someone probably
Yeah.
made a mistake.
Yeah, because if it was done intentionally, what would the intention be? To have someone
Yeah, I don't
hack
know
the
either. Because if you
like
wanted someone to get the password, you could have just like sent them the document.
right? Yeah,
You didn't have to do it that way. So I don't know, but it was a security breach. Someone outside its car. So it was a security breach. Someone does need to look into it, and it needs to be an outside party, not the Secretary of State's office investigating themselves.
yeah, yeah.
But
Right.
we do need answers to who did it, how did it happen, was there some kind of malicious intent? You know, maybe someone was just a disgruntled employee. It's
Yeah,
like I'm going to do this just because
right.
I can.
Yeah, just
I
because.
don't know. So it needs to be looked into,
Mhm.
and I don't know. Maybe some kind of prosecution needs to happen. I know the Libertarian Party is suing the state or her office. I don't know the details of that either fully, but I think that's a good thing because then it will spark an investigation. If there's no pushback, because I think the bad thing is this happened. She didn't say anything. I think she was going to let it just pass. Like, hopefully, no one noticed. We'll just move on. And then, like, the governor said nothing. Our state officials have said nothing. But it became such a national story
Yeah.
that now they're like recognizing, all right, we have to deal with this. So
Yeah.
hopefully they will look into it and we'll find out what happened and the proper actions will be taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of ballots have been stolen in the mail too. Like there's individuals just going around that were stealing ballots earlier in October.
Yeah, Twitter has a lot of stories about that stuff, but I feel like all that is toxic. Like we shouldn't like when Trump tweeted about Pennsylvania, like I just hope we can get through this election night.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, the bad thing I think about that is you create this air of doubt. And when you create that
Yeah.
sense of doubt in the system, you're now encouraging people not to vote. And so I think Republicans are hurting themselves by pushing that narrative. And not that they shouldn't look at it. I think we should have secure elections. We should make sure when things like that happen that we stop it. But when one thing happens somewhere and we just say, "Oh, all the elections are rigged. The whole thing is bad." That one incident was bad, and like even throughout the state, if you follow, I would recommend people look at the Rocky Mountain Voice. Heidi Ganal over there. You guys interviewed her once,
Yeah,
right?
she was on our podcast.
She is doing good stuff in looking into what's happening with things like that in the state. But again, when you look at that, right, this is that incident should be, justice. We need justice for that incident. We need it to be corrected, and we need things to be right. But it doesn't mean that the whole system's bad and we shouldn't vote. We need to flood the system with votes.
Yeah, and now I mean Trump is creating an environment. Well, like now if they lose, no matter what, they're gonna call election fraud, and I half the like people won't accept it this time. You know what I mean? So it's just dangerous in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean I don't know. That's not necessarily new in some ways. I don't like it. I do think that we should look at, all right, we lost. Why did we lose? Let's change strategy and do better next time. Looking internally is good for any organization, whether it's like a sports team or a political team. You lose. Why did you lose? Do better next time. If there was something with the officials that were wrong, even with that, like, all right, let's try to fix that so that next time we can have a fair election. I do think it's a problem that people perceive it that way also in this state, going back to Jenna Griswold. The Secretary of State should be a very boring position.
Yeah.
You deal with elections and filings for businesses. You should be a big nerd. You should not be a political activist.
Yeah,
And
she's
I
on the
think,
news a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a problem that she
Really?
is. very much seen as a political activist. You know exactly how she feels about politics, and that should not be the case. So that alone, you want people to feel secure. So I would even say to that, the department, the fact that there are people in the state who think that the election's rigged, that's a problem that needs to be fixed, even if it is just perception. But I don't know, you go back to 2016, there was a whole Russia collusion we had to hear about for years, and then it turned out to be nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm still hearing the Russia.
Yeah, they're already talking. So it's the same thing. It's either going to be Russia's fault or it's going to be they stole it.
Either side is not going to like it. While we're on the presidential election, I'm curious to hear. I don't know if you want to give a prediction, but how do you feel it's going? Because each side, it seems to me, each side is convinced it's going to be a blowout.
And, I don't think it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah.
I wish it were, because then we'd avoid the whole speculation of election interference and that. If it was just a wipeout in one direction or the other, well, that's the way. But if it's going to be super close and we don't know for days, I would hate that. I hope we know on Tuesday who won. I don't want this to drag out. I think that's weird too. With all the technology we have in this country, France will do theirs in one day. Most countries, by the end of that one day, they know. How come some of our states won't know?
Yeah, it is crazy how long it takes.
I feel like that's a new thing.
Yeah, back in the olden days.
Yeah.
When we didn't have all this technology, they knew by the end of the day.
Yeah.
So now, why is it more difficult now to know the answer? I don't know.
Who do you think will win today?
And that also does, I think that also makes people come up with conspiracies as to why it's taking so long.
100%.
So it doesn't help in the whole. If I were to guess, I feel like Trump is doing well. I think he will win. But I'm not 100% confident in that because in 2016, I was confident he would lose. I remember even I went to work and one of my coworkers was like, Trump's winning. And I'm all right. And then this was in the evening. This was probably about 8 o'clock at night. It's probably going to change. And I kept watching. I kept waiting for it to change. And then when it didn't, I was shocked. I was happy, but I was shocked. And at that point, I was also, in 2016, I voted for Trump. He was the first Republican I ever voted for. But I didn't love him. Mm-hmm. And I kind of did believe a lot of stuff I heard in the media. There was a part of me that was a little scared. What is he going to do as president?
Right. Yeah.
I was happy he won because I didn't like Hillary. So maybe I was more happy Hillary lost than that Trump won. But the way it went, I like the policies. I like what he did. I don't always like what he says, but I like what he does. So right now, I think that he has the momentum, and he tends to. The polls historically have always been not in his favor. Typically, if he polls at something, he actually does better. And I think that part of that is a lot of people are afraid to say that even on the phone, they don't know who this person is. And if I say I'm voting for Trump, am I going to be put on a list and you're going to come to my house and do something? I do think that fear is also a little exaggerated, but you see it more people hating on Trump than so much the other way. Mm-hmm. I think people feel safer saying, I'm going to support Kamala. And their neighbors are going to like him. And
it's definitely a safer candidate to support.
So that's why my guess would be Trump, but I don't know. I think that this election, as of right now, looks like it's going to be good for Republicans across the country. In Colorado, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. I really have no idea what's going to happen in Colorado.
I've seen your support on Twitter is pretty strong. I saw someone posted their showing them voting for you, and thousands of people reacted positively to it. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're surprised at the amount of people. Like I think you're going to do better than is projected.
Yeah, that would be great. I would be very happy. I've heard a lot of support, even with Democrats, because I think when like the issue of term limits, our career politicians, it's very universal in the fact that people don't like that. Even like Republicans, I think, what's his name, McConnell. I think he decided he's not running again, right? Never his next.
Well, he was freezing up there too.
I don't know. He was like having strokes or whatever, like live on TV. Yeah. It's kind of scary. But Republicans were happy, like, good, you've been there too long.
Yeah.
So it's kind of universal on both sides that when someone's there for a long time, the people don't like that. And I hear that in Denver. She's been there. My opponent, Diana DeGette's been there this will be her 15th term. So it'll be 30 years.
God.
Yeah.
And they don't like that. And it's not even that they don't like her. They just don't like the fact that someone's been there for 30 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy, though. Like, I used to kind of be against term limits because I thought, if the people want that person to go back again, that's up to the people.
Mm-hmm.
But having been involved more in politics, I can see that it's hard. Because even with Democrats that I've talked to in the city who will tell me that, like, she's been there too long, we need someone else. I'm like, well, why don't you guys primary her out?
Because is that because it's a money thing? She's entrenched basically because she has such an advantage.
I don't think I'm going to even pass $10,000 in the amount of money I've spent, which I even think that's kind of crazy. I mean, I spent that much money. She will have spent $1 million.
Wow.
$1 million. And I would ask the people of Denver, where did that money go? Like, do you see signs all over the city? Do you see commercials on TV? Do you see advertisements on?
No.
Like, I see nothing. So what cost $1 million?
Interesting.
And a lot of that, like, I'm not saying that, by the way, I'm not insinuating that she's corrupt.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you are that big, your mere existence costs that much money. Because she has a team of people who work on her campaign. I don't know what they do.
Yeah, all their salaries. Probably.
Yeah, so you have all these salaries you pay, and you get money just to be there. You are a machine just to exist. She didn't even do anything, and it cost $1 million. And that's what you can't beat, even in the primary. So say there's a Democrat out there who wants to primary her out. And maybe they're a great person. They're going to be a wonderful candidate for Denver. They want to go in the Democrat primary and primary the career politician out. And again, I'm using Diana DeGette as an example, but this is true on both sides across the board. They have all the political connections. They have donors. They have the money. They are a machine, and it's hard to beat them. And it's because they've been there forever. They've built this. And so that does have to end because it's difficult. Even again, like say, like someone wants to primary her out. How do you do it when you have nothing and she has that machine that just exists to keep her in power?
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to beat. So I will see. Maybe I'll get some protest votes from Democrats. And she needs to go. We're voting for the other guy just to show that our support's dwindling a little bit. We'll find out. Because there is, I don't know, the world of politics is kind of corrupt.
Yeah, I think you'll definitely get the protest vote. I think just the climate in general, people are not happy. And she's been in there for 15 terms. That's you're right. It's too much. But are there any laws? Like, how do you change that entrenched setup? I mean, obviously term limits, but besides that, is there anything else you can do to sort of level the playing field?
So you're talking like not being in Congress, but just being like out here to level the playing field?
Like be a lobbyist or something like that? I don't know.
Ultimately, winning an election is winning it's a popularity contest. You just have to find a strategy to become the person that's more popular. And there's a variety of ways of doing that. I think from the outside, though, I do think that term limits are important. There's a movement right now. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Convention of States. It's a group of people, and I don't think this has ever happened in our country's history, but there is something in the Constitution, so it's legal, that's set up as a way of going around Washington to get something done. And it's there so that if Washington's not doing something, the people can find another way to get this done. My numbers might be wrong here, so people forgive me. But I think what it is like you have to get like a third of the states to sign on to this, and then they will call a convention. And then at the convention, like they need a majority of the states, or whoever the states send. And I forget how many they send, so everyone go look this up yourself because my number is completely wrong. But you need a certain number of states to say, all right, we're going to call a convention about this specific issue. So you can't just call a convention and then just talk about whatever you want. Mm-hmm. It has to be about whatever issues brought up. The convention is had, and then every state sends people, whether they signed on or not. Like everyone sends people. I guess a state could choose not to, but I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah.
So everyone sends however many people. They go to the convention and they talk about that issue and they vote on it. If it passes, then it becomes law. So you can go around Congress to get something passed. And so there is a movement right now of the Convention of States, and they're trying to get this. And I think, and again, I don't know, maybe it's half the states. Maybe they need, and again, my numbers are wrong here, but I think there's like 19 states that have signed on, or maybe they need 19 states, but they're not quite there. It's kind of a long shot because it is a long, difficult process, as it should be, because you're changing the Constitution. That's being done, and I think they want like term limits is one of them, and I forget there's like 3 or 4 things they want that I think the majority of the country would agree with them. They're all kind of just reigning in power of Congress. I think another one's kind of having bills be single subject and transparent or other things like that. I think the problem they're going to have is the way they're presenting this is they come across as a bunch of right-wingers. Mm-hmm. And they kind of are. Like the people behind it, they are conservatives, but they should be, I think they need to present it in a way that's more neutral. Because I think it is something that people on both parties would agree with. But because they are kind of coming across as a group of right-wingers, more blue states are apprehensive to sign on to it.
Interesting.
But that's one way that change can happen. And I said, it's kind of a long shot, but if there's anyone out there who's interested in making these things happen, I would definitely look into them. They're active in Colorado. Colorado has not signed on as a state, but they are active in Colorado and trying to get Colorado to sign on. So that could be something people do. And I think just being involved even at that local level, like local politics affect our life typically a lot more than federal politics.
Yeah.
And so being involved locally is very important. And one thing I have seen, like we've had some issues in our Republican Party here in Colorado this year. I've been pulled into that some, even when I didn't want to, but
what were the issues?
Well, like for instance, the like Pride is Evil email that went out in June.
Oh my God, I forgot that.
Then like they were, the state party was endorsing in the primary, and I think like 18 of like 19 candidates they endorsed all lost. Wow. So now like you have all these candidates who won, who knows that the state party was against them in the primary. Like, how do you try to unify after that? Like, there's a whole, it's kind of a mess. But I've seen people in the Republican Party who see that, they get upset, they're angry, and they leave. And I'm like, I think you should do the opposite. I think you should see that, right, there's a problem in the party. I'm going to become more active. And same thing, I think the same thing happens in government. I don't like what's happening with our county or our city, so I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. Like, no, if you don't like it, you should become more active. Like, use that to motivate you to make change. Because one thing, there's probably a lot of people who agree with you. But if you all run away, then you leave the politics to the people you're disagreeing with, or who you think are doing bad things. To counter that, you guys need to get more active.
Yeah.
And then your numbers will overpower the negative.
No, that's what a lot of people don't realize. Everyone's so focused on the presidential election, but it's really the local elections that have the biggest direct impact on your life. So, one thing I was thinking, you should make a TikTok and just post one video a day of you just like educating the people of Denver about like, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I feel like that will put you in Congress in 4 years, or I guess it's 2 years.
2 years.
Anyway.
If I run again, I've not said that.
Yeah. Dude, I think you should run again. You have to. This is a good start.
I went to a luncheon someone threw with a bunch of like college kids and high school kids. And it was great. But one of the kids there suggested that you need to make 2 TikToks a day.
He's right.
I hate making TikToks.
But the local politicians who do that, they have a giant following, and it really actually makes
it's true. And I agreed with him. Like, yes, you are correct. I should be making 2 TikToks a day. And it's so easy.
Yeah.
Like I found like if you do something that's super produced and polished, and it comes across as not genuine.
Yeah.
If you just hold your camera up and talk into it, it comes across as genuine, and people like that. And I found that on Instagram and on like TikTok. If you do something that's just like with your phone, I took a picture of this, or I'm speaking into it, no fancy equipment, just I'm holding my phone and talking to it. That's what that sticks with people. And I don't know if it's just a younger crowd of people or if that's everyone. But that's what does well on those platforms.
Yeah, I think authenticity. People recognize.
Yeah, exactly. Authenticity. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you go and you get it, you have a studio and you have the big cameras and you do this, then you take it to the computer and you edit it.
Yeah.
And you come up with this really polished, nice, which sometimes those are great, but it doesn't seem to stick with people. And I think your word authenticity is exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Now, there is a place for that. Sometimes you do want the professional look because you want people to see you're serious. But like when you're talking about like every day making TikToks, like that's all it takes.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I hate looking at myself. And I hate watching videos of myself.
You'll get used to it.
And I hate listening to myself. But, I've kind of grown to accept that that's what's happening in this.
Yeah. You'll get used to it. But I think, that's why Trump is so popular. He's authentic. Democrats don't understand. They're like, he lies so much. How do you? And I think Trump lies off the cuff. Kamala lies in a manipulative, thought out way.
Yeah.
Like which one do you want? I don't know.
And a lot of I think Trump's lies, like I guess technically like you could call them lies, but he's just everything's the best and the greatest and the most, and it's obviously not true. Like, I was like, this year was the greatest year we've ever had.
Exactly.
That was the best thing anyone's ever done.
Exactly.
And I'm like, that's the way he speaks. You kind of know when he says like this, like what I did, this was the greatest thing that's ever happened in the nation. It's not the greatest thing that ever happened in the nation, but it was good. But that's the way he's going to present it. I know, like right now, I think one thing that does show he understands people, and I was listening to some radio show and they were talking about him, and they're like, it's weird how does he have that connection with the working class when he was born into a rich family
Yeah.
and now he's a billionaire. Like, he should be completely out of touch. I read a book that was talking about him, and it talked about, like, you look at what he's done through his life. Like, most people who become billionaires or are billionaires, they are surrounded by executives, high level people. He was in the real estate game. He was building buildings, and in doing that, he was at these sites hanging out with construction workers all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So he spent most of his career, like, sure, yeah, the people at the top are really rich, but he was on the site talking to the construction workers. He was hanging out with the people building his buildings. So I think he has a kind of an understanding of who that crowd of people is and what's important to them. And I think it also comes across in the way he speaks. He's not the most eloquent of speakers.
Yeah.
But what he says is, like, it's real. He doesn't speak like a politician. He does kind of just go out there and start talking. Like, right now, there's a video going around of him in the garbage man jacket.
Oh, that was so awesome.
So that 5-minute video is just, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of self-deprecating, you know. He's like, well, it makes me look thin. So if it makes me look thin, I'm going to wear it.
Yeah.
And that he was old, or he's like, I have to get up there. It's too high. If I don't get up there, they're going to say I'm incognitant and I have cognitive issues and I'm physical. Speaking like that, I think, is good. And he does do that well. And other politicians, like Kamala, is kind of just a politician.
Yeah.
When she speaks, she says what was given to her to say.
And we still don't know who she is. Like, that's why I wanted her to do Joe Rogan, because maybe we'd get an idea of who she is, but there's just something missing there. And I think the people can sort of feel that.
I think not doing Joe Rogan was a huge mistake for her.
Yeah.
Right? Because she'd be speaking directly to her worst demographic, right? Men. And if it went well, I think it could have, like, swung the election.
Yeah, it could have. And I don't get that. I think, and I don't know Kamala. I mean, no one knows who Kamala is, but, like, I think, and it's not just her. A lot of politicians, they're so afraid of making a mistake or saying something wrong or going off the cuff that they want to present themselves as this, like, perfect, polished person. And I think that where we are in our time right now is we want reality.
Yeah.
And so they don't like doing things, or even something like this where you're talking to someone for an hour or whatever. They want to go on, they want to do their little soundbite, say their little polished presentation, and be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of don't get that, because I feel the opposite. Like, I'll do a radio show where I'm going to be interviewed, and I'm going to go on, and I know I'm only going to be there for like 8 minutes.
Yeah.
They'll ask me one question, and you've seen how I drone on about stuff. One question is 8 minutes to answer. Like, when it's over, I'll look back and I'm like, I don't even know what I said. Like, I didn't even say anything. Like, we didn't even talk about anything. I basically just said, hi, I'm Valdamar, go look me up. And that's like it. That's all you can hope to come from that, is they heard your name, they're now going to go look who you are. Whereas, like, when you do podcast, I love doing podcasts, because then I feel like I'm sitting down with someone, we're having a conversation, we can go deeper into stuff, and I can talk about things more deeply. And I feel like that's a benefit. I don't understand why her or any other politician would avoid someone like Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan's not even mean. He's like one of the nicest people.
Yeah.
He's not going to be like, what about this? You said. He's just going to want to talk to her about who she is. It's not going to be a gotcha moment. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. She is. I bet $50 on her on this betting app for presidential Congress. Yeah, when she was at 34% on the app, and now she's up to like 46. So she was way down according to these betting odds. Now she's
so you'll make some money.
Yeah, could cash out now and make like $10.
But you can cash out before.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of wacky, these betting apps, and they're like new this election, it seems like.
Yeah, because it used to be. I don't know the legality behind that, but I know I had heard for a while that was illegal in this country, and so like people that do that had to go through like the back door to like UK betting sites.
Yeah.
But I have heard that this year like something changed, and now you can bet on elections in this country. I don't know, but I don't know how.
I wonder if you
it's I wonder. I'm gonna look if you're on it or not.
Yeah, you should put some money on it.
You'll make bet like $5 and you'll make like $1 million.
Let's see.
So, well, I bet you can bet on Valdamar. I would be surprised if you couldn't.
I don't know if I want to know. What does it say?
I don't
kind of do want.
Yeah, maybe you can set it up.
Yeah, put me in there.
But I totally agree. I think moving forward, podcasts will be completely essential to any campaign. Like if you don't do it, no one's going to vote for you because people are sick of the sound bites. You can't get to know the person whatsoever, and podcasts really show you who the person is. So,
yeah, no, I think the whole media landscape is changing. Mm-hmm. It was Brian Stelter. I might be mispronouncing.
Yeah, that guy from CNN. Yeah.
They kicked him off, and I think he's back now. I don't know. He posted something. I don't know where he said it, and it wasn't him who said it. He heard it from an exec that basically, if Trump wins, this means that the media, like, it's over for the media.
Yeah.
And what he meant by that, though, like, not that like Trump's going to take the media out, like. And I think what he said was true. The media has been vilifying Trump for years. I think there was a statistic that like 75% of all the media about Trump's been bad. 75% of Kamala's all good.
Yeah, which is crazy.
If the people don't buy it and they still voted for Trump, it means that the people don't care what the media says.
Yep.
And I think that is becoming true. And like you said, the legacy media, the what people call the mainstream media, whatever. Mm-hmm. People are recognizing that there's a narrative behind that, and they're not always honest with us. And so I do think a lot of citizen journalists, podcasts like yours, where it's, we're not in some fancy studio. I'm like in your living room. Yeah. This is where people are going to have real conversations. This is where you're going to hear the truth. There are people out there. What's the guy named Nick Stacy? Nick. He's just a kid with his phone. And he goes around, he's a white kid, and he speaks Spanish really well. And he goes to like the border and talks to people coming across the border.
Wow. I got it.
But like, you realize like what he's doing is real. Like he's asking real questions. He's making no commentary. He's doing what journalists should be doing, but they're not. Yeah. And now he kind of has a big following. I think he was here in Colorado when the whole Aurora thing was happening, and he was over there. And I first started following him because I thought it was funny to see this white kid.
Yeah.
He's like 19 years old. You don't expect like this Spanish language to come out of his mouth as well as it to be. He talks to them and he just asks real questions and lets them answer. He says nothing. He's not giving his opinion.
Interesting.
And he'll go talk to homeless people and other things. But I mean, I think people like him, like you, like that's what people see as, again, authentic.
Yeah.
This is real. He has no, and everyone has kind of a bias, but it's happening all over. You just see people like, I'm going to get my camera and I'm going to go do this and I'm going to record it and I'm going to put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And there are people who are building like their own little YouTube channels, Instagram channel, accounts, whatever, where they're reporting on what's happening in their neighborhoods or where they live. And people are seeing that as more trustworthy than what comes from like MSNBC or ABC or even Fox.
Because they've destroyed their credibility. I mean, especially in this election cycle, I'm shocked by some of the ways they twist Trump's words and take it out of context. And it's catching up with them. People are they're watching Trump speak and then watching the reporting, and it's not computing.
Yes, was it yesterday? I noticed when Trump was talking to Carlson in Arizona, and
Yeah.
he talked about Liz Cheney,
Oh, yeah.
and the way he said that was kind of bad. It was not the
Yeah.
best way to say what he said, but it was true.
Yeah.
Like he was basically saying if she was
She
the
would
one
never go to
standing
war.
in front of the guns when she's creating these wars, would she still do it? And that's a great question.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great. Again, he was a little like graphic in his description of it,
Yeah.
but it's true. Like, I think that's really funny that the Democrats have embraced the Cheneys.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They're
They're like
I don't know if you
terrible.
saw the
They're
movie
war
Vice.
criminals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
did you see the movie Vice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw it. A friend of mine took me to the theater to see it. I was probably the only Republican in the whole theater. And it was, everyone hated Cheney in that room. You could tell this theater is full of Democrats who hate Cheney. And kind of for good reason. Like,
I mean, he created the whole weapons of mass destruction and all these lies to our people.
And then even with her, it's dog time. I know the last video we did, there was a lot of dog time in it.
Oh, yeah, we had the 2 dogs. Hoagie's a little more shy.
He's a little more mellow.
Just...
No, you're good.
Yeah.
But it's weird. Like, there's Cheney. She's so wonderful.
Yeah.
We love her. Like, really?
Yeah, I don't get it at all.
Do you not remember that movie you made about her and her family? Not even that long ago. About how they're all criminals.
Yeah, it's true.
That's really all Trump was saying.
Yeah.
Was that, her family has been pushing war. Would they have been different if their kids, if Liz was the one who had to go fight the war?
And the reporting on that was insane. Trump calls for Cheney's execution. Yeah. Like, what? It was just so off base. And there's 10, 20 examples of that. And I guess some people don't fact check. But the whole Cheney thing, my take on it is like, look at the people around Trump, look at the people around Kamala. To me, it's black and white with just the quality of intellect and like the more, just like who they are as people. And to see Cheney drop all of her, everything which, she stands for, all conservative values and goes and joins Kamala, who is extremely left. Mm-hmm. She's lying pretty much about her beliefs, but it's just shocking. Like, this is going to go down in history as one of the weirdest political alignments.
Yeah,
this whole thing. Yeah, and I even told people, like, I almost feel more excited about Trump winning because of the people who are. Like, if Elon Musk really does get. And I think it will happen, because what does Trump have to lose at this point? Like, if he goes, he's not going to go up for another. Like, this is it. Mm-hmm. So he's not going to be up for re-election. So go in and, not literally, but burn the place down, so to speak.
Yeah.
If Elon goes in and develops the whole, Department of Government Efficiency, to make the government more efficient and get rid of waste of management, time, spending, and all that.
I think he can do it.
Yeah, I heard he might get deported, though, for illegally working as an immigrant in the country.
Isn't that crazy?
That's what Biden's trying to do now.
It's all right. Just like zoom in, man. But I saw he posted, I don't know if it was just yesterday, that he tweeted out. And I always say tweet. I know it's X, but I don't know if I'll ever switch my language.
Yeah, that's fair.
So people, when I say tweet, I mean X, about bringing on Ron Paul. And Ron Paul's like, I don't know, I'll think, let's talk. I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be
Ron
awesome.
Paul came in and they were going out there making the government more efficient. And then RFK Jr., there is it's talked about all the time about, we eat crap. Yeah. Our food's bad. What we eat here, you couldn't
He's
eat.
The first politician to say it out loud.
But no one does anything about it. Like, if he were to go in and be given control over the agencies that he said Trump wants to give him influence over, and even if he only made 25% of what he's saying he'll do, that will be massive.
Yeah, just to get rid of the corruption, because you have agencies governed by the companies that they're looking over. Like it's a total revolving door of corruption. When he breaks it down, it sounds like he knows how to sort of break the cycle.
Yes,
I'm totally for that.
The team is good, and I love Tulsi Gabbard. Mm-hmm. She was the last Democrat I ever voted for.
Really? Wow.
I told her, like, she was here in Colorado once, and I got to meet her, which was awesome. I told her that you're the last Democrat I ever voted for, because that was when I was still unaffiliated, and I think it was the 2020 primary, and the Republican primary, there was nothing, like no one was running against anyone, so it was pointless. So I voted in the Democrat primary. I'm like, I like Tulsi. I'm voting for her.
And like, I don't
think she has a shot at this point, but I'm still voting for Tulsi because I like her.
Yeah. And she really got shafted by the Democrats. That's when the corruption on the left was really blatant. There was that whole thing with Google where she was being suppressed and.
Yeah, that's one thing. Like, the Republican Party has a problem in that we don't cooperate with each other. We're a bunch. I heard it explained really well, and I wish I can give credit to who said this, but I don't remember who it was. That we always talk about the Big Tent. We're the Big Tent. Like, we're not the Big Tent. The Democrats are the Big Tent. We're a bunch of little tents that are trying to work together and get things done. The Democrats, like, they all just kind of
lockstep.
Yeah.
Like with what happened with Kamala, like if the Republicans tried to do that, like, all right, this isn't your nominee, we're going to replace him with this other person.
Yeah.
Like, all hell would have broken loose across the country, and Republicans would not have had that.
Yeah.
And they probably shouldn't have. They would have been mad. No, we're not going to vote for just whoever you put in there. And it would have been the whole thing, and their president would have just automatically lost because we would not have been together. Like, on the other side, like, all right, that's who our president is now. Okay.
Yep.
We love her. We're going to have sign. We love this. This is the greatest thing ever. That would not have happened on the other side.
Overnight, she went from one of the most unpopular vice presidents in history. The media machine just kicked into gear, and all the rhetoric around her changed. And it was crazy to watch.
Yeah, and that's how it is. Like, no, you love her. And everyone's like, okay.
Yeah.
This is what you want. You want this. You want this. You believe this. Liz Cheney is good now. Oh, okay. We love Liz Cheney.
And she dropped all the things she was running on in the previous cycle. She was anti-fracking. She was defund the police. Yeah. She was like,
and even borders. That. Where's all the environmentalists? Why aren't you mad that she now is for fracking? No, it's good that she's for fracking now. Like, okay, whatever you tell us, that's what we'll believe. Just let us know what we think, and we'll do that.
It was crazy when she was asked about, I think it was like prisoners transitioning. She totally abandoned. Yeah, she just totally abandoned those people and just said, "I'm going to follow the law," and didn't delve into it anymore. He asked her again, like, well, how do you personally feel? She was just like, I'm going to follow the law. That was shocking to me because she can't, I don't know. She just abandoned everything she stood for.
And they're sending the same thing there. Like, where's the LGBT community? Why aren't they?
They should be pissed,
But they're not. Like, okay, that's what we believe now, right? Yep. That's what we'll do. But going back to, like, Tulsi, like, they've done this before. They rigged it against Bernie. I thought in like 2016, it was funny that Donald Trump was the only person defending Bernie. He's like, what they did to him was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's true. No one else is sticking up for him.
Yeah.
That's where I lost a little bit of respect for Bernie Sanders. Because even though I disagree with much of his policy, I respected him for a long time and that he was honest about what he believes.
Yeah, I loved Bernie, and he was one of the first politicians that really felt authentic to me.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't agree with him, but I'm like, I like him because he's honest about what he believes, and he genuinely does believe it. He's not just saying it to get people to like him.
Yeah.
He really believes this. He has a passion for it. He has his reasons for it. I don't agree, but he's very, like, I get it. I get why he believes what he believes because of who he is. But when that happened and they pushed him out, and he just kind of like, all right,
I think he
Like,
could have.
wait.
I think he could have beaten.
I
Trump,
don't like this. Like, I want you to fight for yourself a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
even again, I'm not going to vote for him, but like, stand up for yourself a little bit, Bernie.
Yeah, he would have had a way better shot than Hillary.
Yeah.
against Trump
Right.
too. Yeah.
So when Tulsi, when that happened to her, she did stand up for herself, and like they basically pushed her out, which I think Democrats, and again, if I were a Democrat, I would be pissed that we lost Tulsi.
yeah,
And I would be pissed that they pushed her out like that because she is intelligent and she's genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's even things she believes that I disagree with, but I love the fact that she's genuine. She loves the country. She wants what's best for the people. And it comes across very real. I think that she really feels that way. And she would be a powerhouse in the Democrat Party if they kept her and worked with her and said, all right, we disagree with you on this, but, this is what happened. But they treated her so bad because she would not just go along with their narrative. Or like,
yeah, she wouldn't fall in line.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't
it's
play
all right,
the
their
game.
loss, our gain.
Yeah, honestly, that was a huge addition to Trump's team. And I feel like it's not highlighted enough. But the other day, Mark Cuban said Trump has no intelligent women around him.
Yeah, Tulsi was the first person I thought of.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. But who do you see running on the Republican ticket in another 4 years? Let's say Trump loses or wins, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think stepping up? Do you think it's going to be someone like Vivek, or could you see one of these new Republicans running?
If I were to guess right now, I would probably assume, we're going to have, like, Nikki Haley's probably going to run again. Ron DeSantis is probably going to run again. Vivek's probably going to run again. J.D. Vance will probably run. I think J.D. Vance will be difficult for them all to beat. I think Tulsi may run as a Republican. There's a part of me that, not that I'm questioning her, but because I do think she's genuine and she's doing this because she believes this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But in the back of her head, there has to be this, I ran as a Democrat and they treated me like crap. What if I run as a Republican?
That would be awesome.
I love her. I would be supportive of that.
Same.
Even though, again, there are things that she believes that I disagree with, but that's true with everyone. Like, I don't care. Every person I just mentioned, even Donald Trump, there are things he's doing I don't agree with, but overall he's better. Like I said, I think the only person you're going to agree with 100% is yourself.
Yeah.
And even then, sometimes like, what did I just say? What did I just do? Because and if you do, I think if there's a political party or there's a politician that you feel you agree with 100%, you're probably not thinking for yourself, or you don't know who they are. But because that's okay. It's okay that I disagree with this, that, or whatever. But I was not the biggest fan of Donald Trump choosing J.D. Vance at first, but hearing him go around and talking to the media, he is very intelligent.
He's done an excellent job.
Excellent, yeah. He's very good at explaining what Trump. He's better at explaining Trump's policies than Trump is himself.
Yeah.
He's very good, and I do like him. So he has grown on me. I now see why he was chosen, and I like J.D. Vance. And so I think if J.D. Vance continues on this path, and he does a good job as vice president, which I don't see any reason he wouldn't, in 4 years, he will probably be the one to run. Yeah. Especially if Trump were to say, like, I endorse him. Yeah. But I do think all those others are going to try.
They definitely will.
Yeah, and I can see someone like Tulsi or one of these new Republicans running and winning because they would attract a lot of Democrats, and it's not Trump, so it's not like Trump bad. I can.
Yeah, that isn't. I mean, like some of what Trump's facing like he brings on himself in some ways, but a lot of it also is unfair. Like the way they do treat him is not fair. And I have a lot of friends. You know, I was a liberal for a long time. I was more left leaning for a long time. Like I said, the shift happened. I moved over to the right just because of the shift, but I still know a lot of people and I have a lot of friends who just hate Trump, and it's because they believe everything the media says. And there's almost so many lies that it would take hours and hours of talking to them before they realize everything you were told about him, or not everything, but most of what you were told about him was a lie. Like, there are a lot of people in this country right now who really think Donald Trump wants to execute and kill Liz Cheney.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
create camps.
And create camps and all this. They believe that. And that may be a problem if that stench gets attached to J.D. Vance, especially if you were to get endorsed by him. Like in Denver, with this campaign, we've often talked about how closely I want to be linked with Trump.
Yeah.
And talking to him and that. When he was here in Colorado, he talked about multiple candidates and endorsed several. And I had people like on my team, someone was mentioning, like, he didn't, and I didn't expect him to mention me. No one, he's not going to talk about the congressional one district. Like, but one of my teammates was like, we should put on an ad, like, Valdamar not endorsed by Donald Trump. That might help you in Denver. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I guess.
Yeah.
I have felt that like I can talk about Trump more, and it's not as bad as it was like in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who I think are coming to that conclusion that he's not the person the media told us he was, or he's not as bad as, we thought. And he is gaining more support. We'll find out on Tuesday how much that really is, if that's real or that's just a perception.
Yeah, I'm curious how he'll end up doing. I mean, he's definitely going to lose Colorado, I think, but I'm curious if he'll.
Yeah, I don't see him winning Colorado
4 years ago.
But how close? I had heard that there were numbers that put him only down by like 5 in Colorado.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's what they're saying about like New York.
I don't know if that's true.
In New Jersey.
Trump?
Yeah. I've heard that too. Yeah, same thing there. And I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, who knows?
But it has been, like when he went to the Bronx, that rally I thought was pretty amazing. When you saw the people who were there, or when he went to the barber shop, or when he went to like the fire station in the Bronx, or in New York. I think maybe that was Harlem. I don't know. When he was going through his trial, so they had him in New York. So he was like basically like campaigning in New York because he was there anyway. But the response from people was interesting. They did seem to like him. Like a lot of people in New York City seemed to like him.
Yeah.
And I found that even in Denver, like I meet people who like him.
Yeah, I think the Trump's momentum shift has been palpable. I know he's liked and cool amongst younger people.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more okay to openly support him now. The only thing is the left has done an insanely good job at just totally trashing and debasing him with his economic plans that they're coming out with all this stuff like this is what it would do. When Trump has done, he hasn't even released a detailed plan, so they're sort of just cherry picking random stuff he says. So I'm hoping that all of that is not good enough or strong enough to really change the momentum that much. But I totally agree. I think can see people being really surprised by the amount of votes he gets in liberal states.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I said, they are doing that. They're calling, they called his rally a Nazi rally. They
oh my God, that pissed me off.
But the thing about it is, we've been hearing this for 8 years, 10 years almost.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, it's like the boy who cried wolf. Like you've been saying this over and over and over and over again, that a lot of people are just completely desensitized. Like, oh no, Trump said a mean thing. Like, you tell us that every day for years. At some point, it's like, all right, whatever.
It's totally crying wolf, and it totally dilutes the meaning of these words.
Yeah.
And we've had 4 years of him, and what are they going to do if he wins and none of the shit that they said even comes close to happening? You know, like what? Like
Yeah,
I don't
4
know.
years
It's just
they'll be
embarrassing.
calling Tulsi a Nazi. She's a
It's just
Nazi.
crazy.
She's going to throw whoever it is going to get that. Yeah, I would think people would have to see that it didn't happen. Like, he didn't do that the first time. And I always feel like with COVID, if anyone ever wanted to become a dictator and take full control of their country, that was the perfect opportunity for someone to be like, all right, there's an emergency. I'm the dictator now.
Yeah.
You must all do what I say. This is an emergency power thing.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the time to do it. Like, I'm getting a little off topic now, but like, there was a meeting here at the Remington School, the Remington Elementary School, on Tuesday, I believe. Yeah, it was Tuesday, because they're looking at making that school a migrant shelter. But one thing with that, they kept saying, well, it's only if there's an emergency, only during an emergency. And someone had asked, well, what qualifies as an emergency? And it's basically, well, if the mayor says it's an emergency.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it
I hate the mayor.
I would kind of agree with you.
Yeah.
He seems like a partying frat boy who just wants to have fun and go hang out with all the sports teams.
He's really annoying.
He is. But and then, so it made me think about a lot of things. Like, right now, like, Denver has decreased how much money they're going to spend on migrants. You know, like, all you got to do is say it's an emergency and all that goes away and you can spend whatever you want. But the people there were really upset. Now, there was a small group of people there who were very like, we want to help the newcomers, and we want to be there. We want to help. What can we do? But the majority of the people in that room were not happy that they were going to use this school. They were concerned about crime. They were concerned about all this other stuff. And of course, the city people were like, no, it's fine. Everything's great. This is an opportunity for us to help our neighbors. And, one lady was like, they're teachers and engineers, and we just need to get them into those jobs. And, like, I'm not saying that there's not a teacher and engineer in that group, but you want us all to believe the majority of people coming over here are like engineers and teachers and nurses, and nothing against them. I think the majority of people coming over are good people, but it only takes a few people here for bad reasons to hurt your neighborhood. And we've seen it happen around the state. We keep being told, oh, it's just in your imagination.
Yeah.
This isn't real.
When you talk with people, is that like one of the top concerns? Is that crime? Because I know Colorado has gone all the way up the list. I think it's like the number one state for like home invasion, like some
we
crazy
are having
stuff.
bad things happen in the state.
I'm seeing it in the news, but are the people feeling it? Like,
they
think they're going to vote
I hear
on
it
that?
from them. I don't know if they're going to vote on that necessarily, but they do see it. I don't know. Did you watch the debate I had with my opponent?
I saw some parts of it. She kind of was like, "Oh, it's not really my problem."
Yeah.
I should have watched that.
We talked about. I give her a lot of credit that she did the debate because she didn't have to, and I will say, like, from a political strategy perspective, I don't know if she had anything to gain by doing the debate. So the fact that she did it was great. And I like the fact, I like the way they ran it, in that at the beginning, we asked each other questions. So I got to come up with 3 questions to ask her. She got to come up with 3 questions to ask me.
What did you ask her?
I asked her, it was kind of a long-winded question, but basically, crime's going up in Denver. A lot of it's because of policies put out by the mayor. Do you think he made a mistake?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Just like what Hans said, she basically said, it's not my problem. That's a local issue. I want to talk about national stuff.
Yeah, crazy.
I'm like, if that's what you represent, the people in the city, if that's what they care about, that's your problem.
So she just
That
totally
is your,
blew it up.
that's your issue.
So crazy to me.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that was, that's really your answer. Now, she said it in a much more delicate, nice, politician type of way, but that was basically the point.
Yeah.
Because that's a local issue, not a federal issue. So
she won't critique him. Yeah.
I'm not going to say, but no, people do see that. And she also quoted a bunch of numbers. She was ready to talk about crime, which was good. But those numbers, one, I don't know if you saw the FBI
they put out all their numbers.
Which happens a lot. Those were wrong. We're sorry. Crime actually went up.
And they fact checked Trump in one of the debates, and it was because of those numbers. But he was actually correct.
He was right. The numbers were wrong because they didn't count everything. And they eventually came out and said, yeah. Of course, no one reports on that. You hear the first, crime is going down across the country.
Yeah.
Then later there's like a little article at the bottom of a webpage. Oh, we were wrong. It's actually going up.
So is that's one of the top 2, 3 issues?
And you're in Denver. Here's the thing, so crime statistics are going down.
Yeah.
But if the police are not responding to crime, so crime's not being reported, is it actually going down? No. Or are we just not hearing about it?
I called the police to this house. We had someone break in the backyard. They didn't even come. They didn't even come. They were down the street. They're like, oh, we got the guy. And I was like, how do you know? And they wouldn't even come. They wouldn't even come.
What if there's another one?
They had no idea. They're just like, we got the guy. We don't need to come.
But the problem, and this was one thing that irritated me at the Remington meeting. I have some friends who are cops here in the city who I talk to, and they let me know some of the things happening. The meetings that the city puts on can be so annoying. And our mayor is annoying because he will be like, everything's great. Everything's working.
Denver.
Everything's wonderful. And you're like, it's not though. The people are here because they've seen that it's not. Yeah. You telling us it is not changing our mind. But one of the officers no, we're at we have 90%. We're good. In my 30 years here, we've never been at 100. So I was like, wait, so you're saying that it's fine? Our police force, there's 100 something open positions, and that's fine. You don't have a problem with that.
Wow.
I was irritated. But anyway, I talked to a police officer who was telling me about things they've been told not to respond to anymore just because they don't have the police to do it. One was that I found kind of surprising. Do you know about the microphones around the city so that if a gunshot goes off, they can triangulate where that gunshot happened within 90 feet.
Oh wow.
So there are microphones. There's a lot of cities that have this. I'm sure all the conspiracy people are, there's microphones around the city. Maybe that is a reason to be concerned, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. There are microphones that if a gunshot goes off, they can hear it and find out where it's coming from. So if there's a gunshot, they go look, all right, what happened? Well, now, and I'm not encouraging people to start shooting their guns, but he said they were told we won't go unless there's a third gunshot. So as long as you kill the person, no, the police aren't going to come look to see what you did.
That's crazy.
No, they don't have the people, and other things like that. So and with robberies, they aren't going to report things like what you said with your backyard.
Yeah.
So now, if people know, if stores know, all right, someone stole something, but the police aren't going to come, or they're not going to do anything, I'm just not going to call the police when my store gets robbed. So now there's not as many robberies being reported. Does that mean that robberies are going down?
No, probably not.
And so that's what's happening in a lot of our cities, and it's happening in Denver. The statistics may show by number things are coming down, but a lot of that's because people aren't even calling the police anymore. And things aren't being reported. And he even talked about how discouraging it is as a police. If you do go arrest someone, you take them to, the station, they book them, whatever. and then like an hour later, you just see them back out
they're
on the
just
street again.
released.
Like
Yeah.
it's like, why did I just do that? Like, what was the point? And so, like, police are discouraged from even doing their job sometimes. So it is a problem, and it is something that whoever's representing you should care about. It's like the president. The president looks out for the good of the whole country. Our senators look out for the good of the state. Our Congress people in the House look out for the good of their district, the people. So that's how it should
be. Is Aurora in your district that you're running for, or
no? Aurora is John Fabricatore's district. It's right next to ours, but there are issues. A lot of what's happening in Aurora, happens here.
Yeah,
it's not like Aurora's a whole nother world away, and then vice versa. What happens in Denver affects Aurora.
What is your take on what happened in Aurora? Because I know there's so many conflicting, I guess, statements made by the police and then by the mayor.
It was
what actually happened, and then Trump came and
that was one of them things that like really highlighted to me how corrupt our media is. And I didn't have a great viewpoint of the media to begin with. So while that happened, there were people saying, all right, there were apartment buildings that were taken over by Tren de Aragua. There were other people saying, no, that didn't happen. It was a slumlord owner of the building. And that was the argument going back and forth. And so my thought is, why can't it be both?
Yeah, I think it was a combo.
Like, one of those things does not cancel the other one.
Yeah, totally.
So I think it was a little bit of both. It was just which side of the picture do you want to focus on?
Mm-hmm.
And the media was focusing on, no, it's just a bad landlord. That's all that was happening. So with that, again, I had a conversation with a police officer about like Denver. And he had told me that there were at least 2 homeless shelters downtown where portions of the homeless shelter was controlled by Tren de Aragua. And they, as police officers, were told, do not respond to anything at that shelter unless there's 3 of you. So I posted that on Twitter, and it kind of like people were talking about it. The media would say nothing about it, but they contacted me like on the site.
Weird.
Like they don't want to talk about it publicly, but on the site, who told you that? And like I'm not going to out the officer who told me it, but I'm like, it's a police officer.
That's wild.
I just told that.
What's the media's hesitation?
I don't know, and like I didn't publicly call out the actual shelters.
Yeah.
But when the media asked, I told them exactly. This is which shelter. This is the address. This is who you talk to there. They know what's happening. And then nothing.
Interesting.
And also, like, why don't you like ask me about it? Like reporters were like on like, why don't you do this publicly? Why don't you like retweet it with a question? Where is this happening? Or why is it? And I talked to John Fabricatore, and the same thing was happening to him with Aurora. Whereas Danielle Jurinsky, they made out to be like some crazy woman.
Yeah.
And they mentioned her. Yeah. She was insane. She's just this crazy lady. Whereas like John and myself, we mention it, they don't even want to talk about it. With John, it's because I think he has credibility, and they don't want to give him publicity because then it makes Jason Crow over there look bad because he's not doing anything about it. He's not talking about it. He's saying that it's not even happening.
Yeah.
So they don't want to help John in his race.
I see.
So I don't know, but I think that when you look at it, it makes sense because when these criminals come into a place, and whether it's Tren de Aragua, a foreign gang, or it's domestic street gangs, or it's the mafia, they tend to take advantage of vulnerable people.
Yeah.
Because like if you go to an apartment building that's run by slumlords, and it has poor people who maybe are in vulnerable positions, there's a little desperacy to their situation, you can victimize them, and they're probably not going to go run to the cops or call security or go get a lawyer or do something like that. Whereas if you go to like, I don't know, a high luxury apartment and do it there, that individual that you just victimized is going to get a lawyer. They're going to call the police. They're going to like pursue action against you. And with the homeless shelters, I was like, it kind of makes sense. Like I had a friend who was homeless off and on. And one day he was telling me he was staying at a hotel with some people. He's like, yeah, they're letting me stay with them because I'm like helping them with some stuff. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. They're like business people. they're living in a hotel. You're staying with them in the hotel. Like this is odd. And they were doing like a pressure washing business. But it's still like it was weird. Like, why is the pressure washing business being run out of a hotel?
Yeah.
And then he one day told me, he's like, yeah, I gotta go drop this off at the post office and I have this other thing to drop off. I'm like, what are you dropping off? He's like, I don't know, there's packages they gave me. Like they're using you to do stuff that they know if you get caught, you're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
But again, he was in a position where he needed help.
Yeah.
So I'm like, who knows what they're using homeless people to do? And I'm not saying that is happening, but
it makes sense though.
And even with Colorado, and now the news kind of has reported on this. I'm surprised people, I don't know if they're just desensitized to the whole Venezuelan gang story. But from talking to police, talking to people who are citizen journalists who've done some investigating, Colorado is a perfect spot for this gang to set up for a North American like headquarters, so to speak. Yeah. Because we're right at like I-70 on I-25. So there's easy highway access to both the East Coast and the West Coast for drug trafficking and human trafficking. We have a government here that is, we are a sanctuary state and Denver is a sanctuary city. There is legislation that tells law enforcement not to cooperate with federal law enforcement or ICE. So they're protected here legally from that. There are NGOs, nonprofits in the city. Well, you saw them appear with what happened at the apartment building in Aurora, who are going to work with migrants and who are going to work with these organizations to make sure they're okay and they have what they need. Like they set up that press conference right away, which I thought was weird. I'm like, why? How are these migrants setting up a press conference? Like that's odd. Like I wouldn't think. Like we're gonna hold a press conference. It was an NGO that set that up for them. Have a press conference saying there is no gangs here. Which also, like, if you're in that building, crazy. How dangerous would it be? Like, of course, you're going to say there's no gang activity. You don't
hurt or killed otherwise.
But anyway, there's that. The climate here is better than like some other cities. Like, I mean, look, it's November and it's beautiful outside.
Yeah.
It's like, shh, we don't tell the other states that. We want them to think we're cold and miserable all the time. But just there's a whole list of things that Denver is a perfect spot for this to be happening in.
So they're totally isolated, or not isolated. They're totally protected.
Yeah, they have protections here, and like with Aurora, I think again part of the conflict was, and Trump did kind of escalate this in saying things like Aurora was taken over by gangs. Some other people have said things like that. The city of Aurora is being taken over, and that's not true. But that's not what Danielle Jurinsky said. That's not what John Fabricatore said. That's not what the mayor said. Like they all pretty much acknowledge it's these apartment buildings were taken over, not the whole neighborhood, not the whole city. And the same thing with Denver. Like Denver's not being taken over by the gangs, but how bad are we going to let it get before we do something? The fact that they are here and they're starting to act, are we going to do something before like they take root and this is a full on, operating headquarters for them? Like that would not be good. I think that's one thing. J.D. Vance was asked this and he gave a perfect answer. And I don't remember where he was, but some lady, some journalist or reporter asked him like, they're saying this happened, but it's only a few apartment buildings. And I forget his exact response. He's like, do you hear yourself? Like an apartment building was taken over and we're not going to care. it's just an apartment building. Like, you could say that. What if you lived in that apartment building?
Yeah.
Then it wouldn't just be an apartment building was taken over. But yeah, I mean, I think was it here in Colorado that the person was held hostage in their house and their finger was cut off?
I don't know if I heard that story. Yeah.
Because I think it was. I might be wrong. So if I'm lying, I'm sorry, everyone. But it happened somewhere. It was.
Yeah.
I think it was here somewhere.
Sounds vaguely familiar. But...
And I was surprised that didn't become a bigger story. Someone, like, they escaped from their house, like, oh, my roommates was holding me hostage, and their finger was cut off. Now, they didn't go into detail. Like, I never saw details as to what actually happened. But, I mean, that's like something you see, like, in a movie. Like, we're holding you hostage.
Yeah.
We're cutting your finger off. We're sending it to your family. And we have the rest of it if you want it back.
Yeah, what's Colorado?
Again, they didn't say that happened, but it makes you question, why was his finger cut off?
I wonder
who was holding him hostage in his house. And that's another problem, when the media will not answer those questions, it makes you wonder, why won't they tell me who did this? And why won't they tell me the reason that happened? Now my brain has to go to this place where, was it a gang? And were they holding him hostage? Did they send his finger to his family? Like, what happened?
Is the problem getting worse? Like, I saw a video recently of what looked like Tren de la Agua. I don't even know if that's how you say it, but going into a luxury building, like you were saying. And would you remove the sanctuary city status from Denver if you had the power?
And with that video, that did go, I actually reposted that, and then a friend of mine who's in the media called me and said that video is really old. And I got it from a source I trusted.
Yeah.
And I heard people who were trusting talking about it. I deleted it right away. And I apologized. I'm sorry, the video I retweeted was not accurate. But I have heard that it's expanding. And again, I'm not saying the city's taken over by gangs. And I also say, and I've said this many times to a lot of people, the vast majority of people coming into the country illegally are wonderful people who just want a better life. I believe that, and I agree with that. But if we just say, like, 1 out of 1,000 people is coming here for negative reasons, either they're part of a gang or they're a terrorist, they want to do something negative to this country. The fact that 10 million people have just come into the country, that's still what, 10,000, 100,000?
A shitload.
A lot of people. Yeah. And go up, what if only 1 out of 10,000 people is coming into the country to do bad things? That's still like 10,000, 1,000 people. It only took 19 people to pull off 9/11. Like, it's not okay. Like, saying it's just a small portion of the population is not a justification to ignore the problem. And Colorado has 2, I think, statutes that have been put up. I don't know the numbers offhand. One was in 23. But anyway, I think they need to be repealed, because basically those laws state that law enforcement is not allowed to work with federal law enforcement agencies when it comes to illegal migrants. Now, Denver, the problem here is that Denver could repeal their law.
So that means ICE is not allowed to operate in Denver, or we just can't cooperate?
They're allowed to operate.
We just can't cooperate.
The police aren't allowed to tell them when they have, a criminal who may be an illegal migrant.
I see.
And the problem here would be, like, say Denver does repeal. We're going to repeal this this law, and I forget the name of the law in Denver, but they're going to repeal the law. Colorado still has the law, so being under Colorado jurisdiction, it would still be happening.
Yeah.
So Denver and Colorado need to do it. And that's the problem Aurora had, because Aurora is not a sanctuary city. But because they're in Colorado, their law enforcement aren't allowed to cooperate with federal law enforcement.
That's crazy.
In dealing with criminals who may be here from another country. And I don't know. Like, I actually find that, like, there's a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot. There are some people, and some of them are these nonprofit NGOs that are existing here who instantly are like, no, we want to defend the migrants. They're just here to make their lives better. And then they get mad that they're saying, like, you're now viewing they're doing exactly what they're saying the problem is. That, like, we don't want to do that because now you're lumping all the migrants into being criminals. And it's like, no, you're the one doing that.
Yeah.
The fact that you won't admit that, all right, these ones are bad. The rest of them are all good. But these ones right here are bad.
Is the fear that there'll be some kind of like racist backlash or something? Are there like why aren't they treating the issue honestly? Is that their concern?
No. Right now, I feel it's political because I think if you highlight that there's a problem with and again, some of the migrants coming in, some of them, there is a criminal element.
Which makes sense. I mean,
the current administration look bad. And then by extension, it makes the entire Democrat Party look bad. And they don't want that right now. So it's better to pretend it's not even happening. That's my
it's funny
opinion.
To me. It's funny to me that all of a sudden Kamala and the Democrats really care about border security. It just sort of came out of nowhere. But you're right. I mean, the language they use, they tread very, very carefully around this issue, and I think it's hurting normal people who just live in these areas.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think it hurts the migrants who are here for just a better life, because it's like you are trying to protect them, but you're not distinguishing that some of them are bad.
Right.
And that's kind of a very blunt, soft way, but like there's a criminal element here. The ones who are coming in, who are criminals, and it's been proven that that's true. I forget the statistics, but there were thousands that they have. I don't know if it was the FBI or Homeland Security or whatever, but they released the numbers.
I saw
that like 13,000 of them have been convicted of murder.
That scares me.
Now they're here, 13,000 of them, and I might be wrong with that number, but
no, I think
it was something like that. And then 30,000 have done this, and it's like that, and they just came in anyway. Like how?
If you're a convicted murderer, I don't think you should be able to.
Yeah, and it's not because you don't like brown people or you don't like immigrants. It's because, and I think it's valid to say, I don't like murderers.
And you're protecting the other asylum seekers too, the other immigrants. You're protecting them because
exactly
there's all this shady stuff going on with trafficking. The cartels are making billions off of trafficking people into the country.
Yeah, these migrants are victims of these gangs. And even here with Aurora, who were the people living in that apartment were Venezuelans. They're the ones they're going to go after. They're the ones being victimized. So the migrants who are coming here to get away from all this horribleness and corruptions of their country come here, and then we just let that element come in with them.
Yeah.
It doesn't help them because they are going to be the first victims of these gangs.
100%.
The immigrants who are coming here for a better life are now going to have to deal with living with, an organized crime group of people, and that's not good. And so, and that's also one thing that's annoying is a lot of people who are like, no, they're fine. We just want to help the migrants. Are people who think you don't have to live with this. You're not living somewhere where you have to deal with the organized crime from Venezuela. You're fine in your house over there.
And they're not listening to the people on the ground.
Yeah.
They're not being honest about the issue. And I mean, you could tell it's a big issue because every state is starting to have problems. Yeah. It's not just border states. It's not just sanctuary cities. It's pretty much every state across the country is starting to have these issues. But I mean,
it's true.
It's good. I guess all we can do is talk about it. It's good to bring light to it. And it's good to know that it's a voting issue for people,
Yeah.
the crime.
I do think that people are starting, like, because eventually they had to admit this was happening. You know,
Yeah.
eventually they did it. All right, yeah, they are here.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, this is happening.
Yeah.
And so people would see them like, oh, wait, that was true. They were right. That is what's happening.
Yeah.
And when that keeps happening over and over and over again, more and more people start to wake up, so to speak, or see what's happening. And you never know what's going to happen. Like, people ask me how I went from being someone who pretty much only voted Democrat and Libertarian for years to being a full-on Republican. And
yeah, why how did that happen?
It started with Donald Trump, and it wasn't him. I was not the biggest Donald Trump fan. Like, I didn't hate him, but like, I didn't watch The Apprentice because I'm not a fan of reality TV, and I found the whole thing annoying. Just like, I was not a huge Trump fan, but I saw that, like, and this is like 15, 20 years ago. Like, everyone else loves him, and he's doing cameos in movies, and he's in rap songs, and I'm like, that's fine. Like I said, I didn't hate it.
That was before he was racist.
And I found it very odd that suddenly, all of a sudden, he was like this monster.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
And the things they were saying, I'm like, well, that's terrible if he said that.
Yeah.
And it was, I remember there was one magazine article where they were saying he said to treat women like crap. He said a different word, but like, treat women like crap. And I'm like, that's terrible. But like, wait, this magazine's from like the 90s. How come nobody cared until now? So I found the article and I read it. And like, when you read the whole article, all he's saying is that when some people become rich and famous and they're rock stars, they treat women like crap and the women let them do it. I'm like, well, that's kind of true.
Yeah.
Like, he's not saying it was good and he wasn't promoting you to do it. He said it was bad. He just said that's what happens. And the same thing with the whole grab him by the you-know-what comment. When you listen to that whole video, he's basically saying that same thing again. Like, he's not saying it was good. He just said, when you're rich and powerful, this is what
happens.
This is what happens. And
yeah, he's very easy to take out of context.
Yeah, like I said, he's not the most eloquent speaker, and his vocabulary is not the greatest. So he says things that, when taken out of context, can sound very odd. But the more I started going down that rabbit hole of who is Donald Trump, the more I realized I kind of agree with him. Like, what he's saying, yeah, that sounded bad. But then when you look at what was the context behind it, I'm like, also, he's not wrong. And no one else is saying it. Maybe we should say it. Maybe someone should talk about it. And even the whole, like, build the wall, that was his big thing in 2016.
Yeah.
I thought, like, that's a little ridiculous. Like, we're not going to build a wall. But it's also not a horrible idea. Like, it's not
He was
wrong.
pointing out an issue that no one else was talking about.
Like, I mean, he's not trying to build a wall where, like, right now we have a gate to come in and out. He's like trying to shut doors. He wants to build a wall where, like, no one should be coming in and out anyway. And, like, I've known my whole life. Like, I've lived in Hispanic communities my entire life. So I knew I've lived with people who've migrated here, people who were here illegally. We all know about, like, it's very common knowledge that there are cartels and drugs coming in and out across the border. Like, that happens all the time. We all know it. So, like, it's not a horrible idea to put a wall right there and make it a little more difficult for drugs and human trafficking. So, like, that's fine. So the more I listened to him, and I was the type of person, like, you know, people would say, oh, this is horrible, like the whole Liz Cheney thing. I would be like, well, did he really say that? Because that's awful. If he said, we want to stand here in front of, like, a firing squad and shoot her. I think that's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm going to go listen to that whole segment. Then you listen to it and you're like, all right, well, I actually agree with what he said. I mean, it was not the most well-stated thing, but yeah, if she had to face the fire herself, she would not be a warmonger. That's the point of that statement.
Yeah.
And so that's what pushed me over. And so I have hope that, you know, at some point there will be other people out there who will get pushed in that same direction. Like,
it's happening.
Just absolutely terrible that he said that. And then go look it up yourself. Did he really say that? Because it also is odd that half the country would be loving him if he really was this monster that everyone's saying he is.
Yeah.
Well, we are approaching 2 hours, and I know I have to go relatively soon. So do you want to go through the ballot to wrap things up? Or?
We're not going to do a 3-hour Rogan podcast.
We're almost there right now. I think we're at like 2 hours.
Well, this is, I think, that's longer. I think the last two we did were like an hour.
An hour, yeah. Normally we do like an hour.
Well, I wanted to say, if you haven't voted yet, vote for Valdamar Archuleta right here on the ballot. Is there anything on this ballot issue-wise or anything else you want to highlight? Or not really?
I do think we need to look at the initiatives, because I think there are people out there, especially in Colorado, who think Trump's going to lose anyway, so why vote?
Yeah.
That's just one issue on this. There's a lot. I forget the number, but this is like the biggest ballot we've ever had. There are very important issues. Yeah. Like with Denver, there's a lot of Denver issues we need to look at there. Increasing the sales tax, I believe that's going to hurt businesses in Denver. Especially, like, say you want to buy a washing machine or a refrigerator, a big appliance.
Yeah, car.
Yeah, if you buy it in Denver, you're going to have to pay this much more tax. I'm going to go to Lakewood and buy it.
And that issue's on the ballot?
Yeah, there's two issues on the ballot to increase sales tax. I think what they want to spend the money on is fine, but throwing more money at a system that's not working doesn't help the problem. Right now, they need to fix the problem before we give them more money. That's my thought. There's also a thing on there to end slaughterhouses in Denver, which I thought was weird. I'm like,
oh, interesting.
Are there a lot of slaughterhouses in Denver? Really? I didn't know there was one.
Oh, yeah, that was a weird one, the slaughterhouse.
But there's one.
And they're trying to shut it down?
And it's an employee-owned slaughterhouse they do lamb. And it's one of the few lamb slaughterhouses in the country. So if it's shut down, they're not going to rebuild it somewhere else. All those people lose their job, and the price of lamb is going to skyrocket because we're going to have to start importing lamb from like New Zealand.
Wait, that's crazy. Denver, listen up to this.
So don't shoot that down. It's been here forever. And honestly, how many of you out there even knew it existed? It's the only one in the entire city. So it would be shut down. Then there's also one to end the selling of fur.
Oh.
So you can't sell fur in Denver, which we may feel like, who cares? No big deal. Well, if you think of some events that happen here, it would affect the National Western Stock Show because they sell hats that have like cowhide around them.
Interesting.
So my thoughts are eventually the stock show is probably going to want to go somewhere else because if you can't sell the cowboy hats or some of like belts that have like cow fur on them or boots that have cow fur on them, they're going to go somewhere else. And then like the powwow and all indigenous festivals, they have fur. They sell fur. Yeah. They're not going to be able to have their celebration. Because Denver's not that big area-wise. Like you can just say, all right, I can't do my festival in Denver. I'll go a mile over and just do it in Lakewood or Aurora. So we're going to be pushing a lot of stuff out of our city if those two ballot measures happen. So
that's good to know.
Vote no on those, and there's like 20 others. We won't go through all of them, but do your research, and there are some good voter guides out there. One I encourage people to look at is the Independence Institute. They have a really good voter guide. They're I would say they're center-right, but they're not like crazy right-wingers. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to go to like the Denver GOP, that also has one. And I don't know why. Yeah, it's been too long. I can't think anymore. I like the Denver GOP one, but if you're like, I want one that's more balanced, go to the Independence Institute.
And they just sort of guide you on what
they do, and they give reasons. Or look at there's hundreds out there. Go look them up. Make an informed decision. I think like when people talk about the threat to democracy, which I think is kind of a ridiculous thing to say, but like I'm like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
I think personally the biggest threat to democracy are uninformed voters. And it's not that they're dumb. I'm not saying voters are dumb. But if you're voting on stuff without really thinking about it, or you're just doing it because someone else told you to, your vote counts and matters. You're affecting the entire direction of the country. And if we have mass groups of people doing that, voting when they don't even really know what they're doing, that's dangerous to me. So be an informed voter. Even if you disagree with me, that's fine. As long as you're doing it because you think that's the best thing to do, I support that. But if you're voting just because this is what my party told me to do, like, then that's not okay.
Yeah. And it's time, Denver, it's time for a change. That's Diane. I'm sorry. Your time is up. But seriously,
Bye, Diane.
Get out and vote for Valdamar. He's awesome. And even if it doesn't go your way, I think you should run again, and we'll get you in the second time.
Yes, I'm not going away. I said there will be good things coming. We're going to keep fighting for Denver to make it a better place.
And I think you're going to be surprised, honestly, by the amount of votes you get. I think you're going to win.
Like my
I think you're going to win.
Filled in on your ballot right there.
Oh, yeah. I'm voting for it.
Look, it is. I made an improvement.
I'm 100% voting for Valdamar. Yeah. Hans did as well. I got my girlfriend to vote for you as well. So
good.
Yeah, you've got at least 3 votes. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, Valdamar.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah.
We're going to do a song called Ohio by
Ohio is beautiful, there's cows